When Star Wars first hit theaters in 1977, it felt like nothing audiences had ever seen before, yet it was built almost entirely from the movies, novels, myths, and philosophies that came before it. To find out where Lucas stole the ideas for the Force, the droids, Darth Vader, and even Han Solo himself, plus much more, let's take a look at where Star Wars really came from. Lucas's inspiration came from the serialized adventure films he watched as a child, like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. These short, 20-minute episodes ended with cliffhangers and always promised to be continued. They taught Lucas the value of constant motion, fast pacing, and closing every sequence with suspense. Lucas wanted to make a film just like that, and even tried to license Flash Gordon itself, but when the rights were denied to him, he set out to create his own version from scratch. The influence of those serials is obvious. The opening crawl, with its slanted yellow text vanishing into deep space, comes directly from the scrolling recaps that opened every Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers episode, which Lucas also used to throw the audience straight into the middle of an ongoing story to get them up to speed. Lucas also reused the wipe transition, where one scene slides over another instead of cutting abruptly. This technique, common in the 1930s serials, appears over 30 times in Star Wars, giving it a constant forward rhythm. That serialized spirit carried through the entire saga. Like those old Flash Gordon chapters, each Star Wars film plays as a self-contained episode within a much larger adventure, complete with bold openings and cliffhanger endings that leave the audience wanting more. The Empire Strikes Back captures this best, ending not in victory but in defeat, Han frozen in carbonite, and Luke reeling from the truth about his father. It's a classic serial move. The story pauses at its lowest moment, making you want to return for the next thrilling installment to find out how it ends. At the University of Southern California, Lucas studied the films of Akira Kurosawa, and none affected him more than The Hidden Fortress, which he admired because it was told through the point of view of the lowest characters in the story, two peasants instead of the heroes. The film opens in 16th century feudal Japan, with two ragged peasants bickering as they trudge through a desert in the aftermath of a battle. The pair eventually split up after an argument, are captured, and reunited, mirroring the exact journey of R2-D2 and C-3PO in Star Wars. They soon discover a princess being hunted by a ruthless empire, and join forces with a legendary samurai general determined to escort her through enemy lines to safety. The princess, much like Leia, is brave, defiant, and deeply wounded by the loss of her people. Not only that, but the prequels and sequels also borrow story elements from the film, like the general dueling a former friend, besting him but sparing his life, only for him to return later badly scarred. Even Padme, hiding her true identity as the Queen of Naboo in Episode 1, echoes The Hidden Fortress, where the peasants travel alongside the princess without realizing who she really is until the very end. Kurosawa's visual techniques also appear throughout Star Wars. The wide shot of desolate land that opens The Hidden Fortress is very similar to the opening view of the Tatooine Desert, while the formal ending ceremonies of the two films mirror each other almost exactly. The influence extends to costumes and philosophy. Darth Vader's helmet and armor were modeled after Japanese samurai gear, combining the domed kabuto helmet and mempo face mask with a mechanical breathing element, while the Jedi's robes, bows, and sword-like lightsabers resemble Japanese warrior costumes. The Jedi's calm discipline, sense of duty, and moral restraint derive directly from the samurai code of Bushido. Lucas also borrowed heavily from Frank Herbert's Dune. Tatooine was inspired by Herbert's planet, Arrakis, a desert world heavily defined by survival, politics, scarcity, and the pursuit of spice, the galaxy's most valuable resource. In Star Wars, the topic of spice also appears in the film. Han Solo is a spice smuggler. The Kessel Run refers to smuggling routes, and spice is central to trade and power on the planet. On Tatooine, Luke's uncle works as a moisture farmer, using vaporators to harvest water from the planet's arid air. On Arrakis and Dune, a similar device known as a dew collector serves the same purpose, pulling precious moisture from the desert atmosphere. The stories also share nearly identical structures. Both follow a young man from a desert planet, Paul Atreides in Dune, and Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, who discover a hidden destiny and join a rebellion against an empire. Luke eventually discovers his hidden lineage. He's the son of the saga's central villain, Darth Vader, while in Dune, Paul faces a similar revelation when he learns he's the grandson of the story's chief antagonist, Baron Harkonnen. Both heroes are forced to confront the darkness within their own bloodlines, blurring the line between destiny and inheritance. Both also mix religion and politics with mysticism. Herbert's Bene Gesserit order and their psychic discipline resemble the Jedi's spiritual training and belief in the Force. Herbert's voice, a technique for controlling others through tone and suggestion, appears in Star Wars as the Jedi mind trick, first shown when Obi-Wan tells the stormtroopers these aren't the droids they're looking for. The Fremen, Arrakis' desert tribes, clearly influenced Tatooine's Tusken Raiders, and thematically the Rebel Alliance. The Fremen's culture of resistance, loyalty, and survival mirrors the rebel struggles against Imperial power. The galaxy in Star Wars is ruled by a tyrannical empire, just how in Dune it's controlled by a corrupt interstellar Imperium. Both regimes are headed by an all-powerful emperor, and both sagas ultimately chart the downfall of those oppressive systems, stories of rebellion, and the collapse of absolute power. Herbert's world also inspired the look of Star Wars. His universe felt ancient, with history buried beneath technology. Lucas applied that principle to create a used universe. Starships are dented and worn, droids are scratched, and Tatooine's buildings are sand-stained. The visual decay gives the galaxy age and realism, something never before seen in a sci-fi film, where up to this point showed futuristic technology as shiny and sleek. Lucas's mentor and close friend Francis Ford Coppola played a pivotal role in shaping both his career and one of Star Wars' most iconic characters. The two met on the set of Finian's Rainbow, where Lucas was a USC film student and Coppola already an ambitious young director. Their friendship led to the founding of American Zoetrope, an independent studio Coppola boldly pitched to Warner Brothers, securing a deal that allowed Lucas to make his first feature film, THX 1138. It was Coppola's fearless energy, relentless optimism, and refusal to play by Hollywood's rules that made him so successful, and that spirit directly inspired the swagger of Han Solo. Charismatic, cocky, and quick on his feet, Han embodies the same boldness that defined Coppola, a man who charged headfirst into every challenge, trusting his instincts over convention. Luke Skywalker, by contrast, is inspired by Lucas himself. Growing up in Modesto, California, a town he often described as stifling, Lucas spent his teenage years tinkering with cars and dreaming of escape. Like Luke on Tatooine, he longed for something greater beyond the horizon. The dynamic between Luke and Han mirrors the one between Lucas and Coppola, the idealistic dreamer paired with a daring risk-taker. The idea for Chewbacca came from Lucas's Alaskan Malamute, Indiana, who often sat in the passenger seat of his car like a co-pilot. Lucas imagined a large, intelligent creature who couldn't speak English but could understand it perfectly, a silent partner whose loyalty never wavered. This became Chewbacca, Han Solo's towering co-pilot aboard the Millennium Falcon. The dog's name would later inspire Lucas's next creation too, Indiana Jones, showing how personal experiences shaped even the smallest creative choices in his films. The design of C-3PO, however, was directly inspired by Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Where Lang's robot, Maria, embodied the dehumanization of labor and technology, Lucas inverted the idea. 3PO and R2-D2 may be machines, but they express deeply human qualities: fear, loyalty, and humor. They bring warmth and personality to a cold, mechanical world, turning technology into something relatable and alive. The Death Star trench run was heavily inspired by British war films like The Dam Busters and 633 Squadron, both centered on daring, low-altitude bombing runs against heavily fortified targets. Lucas borrowed their visual language and pacing: the tight fighter formation speeding toward the target, trying to avoid anti-aircraft fire, the tense radio chatter, and the constant cutaways to a command center monitoring the assault from afar. In The Dam Busters, the pilots even failed to destroy their target on the first pass before finally hitting it, a beat echoed in Star Wars, when Luke's final shot succeeds only after an earlier attempt by another pilot falls short. Earlier in the film, during the escape from the Death Star, Lucas literally cut together footage from World War II aerial combat films to show his visual effects team exactly how he wanted the pacing and rhythm of the dogfight to look and feel, which ILM copied almost down to a T. Lucas also was inspired by the Vietnam War. The Empire represented superpowers that used technology and military force to suppress smaller nations, while the Rebel Alliance symbolized guerrilla movements fighting for freedom. He later said, "Star Wars was about Vietnam, only we're the Empire," acknowledging that America's dominance and interventionism informed his depiction of galactic tyranny. For the Force, Lucas turned to spiritual and philosophical sources. He was influenced by Carlos Castaneda's book on shamanism, especially the teachings of Don Juan, which described the life force flowing through all living things. Castaneda's mentor figure, Don Juan, served as a spiritual guide teaching a student to see beyond the physical world, a dynamic echoed in the relationship between Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker. Lucas blended those ideas with Taoism's balance, Zen Buddhism's mindfulness, and the samurai discipline he'd studied through Kurosawa's films. The result was the Force, a universal energy field that fuses philosophy, mysticism, and morality. More than a mere power, it became the spiritual heart of Star Wars, the invisible thread binding life, choice, and destiny. In Lucas's third draft of the script, he even described Obi-Wan in the notes as an old man who can do magic, read minds, and talk to things, like Don Juan, directly linking the Jedi Master to the shamanic mentor figure from Castaneda's books. Lucas also drew heavily from John Carter of Mars, Edgar Rice Burroughs' early 20th century sci-fi series that helped define the space adventure genre. Princess Leia's gold bikini in Return of the Jedi clearly echoes the same one worn by Deja Thoris, the Princess of Mars, while the gladiatorial sequence on Geonosis in Attack of the Clones mirrors John Carter's battle with the White Ape in A Princess of Mars. Lucas even borrowed several names and concepts, like Banthas, Sith, Jedi, and Padawan, all of which appear in Burroughs' novels with slightly different spellings or meanings. Ironically, when Disney finally adapted John Carter for film in 2012, audiences thought it was copying Star Wars, Wars, unaware that Lucas had once borrowed so much from it. Star Wars began as a collage of old ideas, borrowed plots, forgotten myths, and recycled archetypes, but somehow became something entirely its own. George Lucas took the stories that shaped him, and in turn, created a story that shaped us all. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.